Hello, welcome to the RPD podcast. My name is Ian Gjertson, and I'll be your host in today's episode. Today, we will be discussing the power of networking with my colleague, Peter Hainsworth. Peter is the Director of Business Operations at Ridgeline Electrical Industries and has almost 10 years of experience in business operations. He is the founder of the Ops Group, located in Indianapolis. You can learn more about the networking organization by clicking the link in the description of this video. Peter, it's an honor to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Ian. It's so great to see you, man. And I love being here. I'm excited to chat with you. And as I'm sure you'll find out, I have a passion for those in a director position or an operations position. So it's unique because I've been in it for a while, and I love helping and talking with others about it.
Awesome. Well, we're all very excited to have you on the show today. I'll go ahead and jump into the first question. Can you share a personal example of how networking has positively impacted your career?
When I'm trying to network with someone, an area that has helped me immensely is actually finding that others have dealt with the same issues I have. When I first took my role here at Ridgeline, I didn't know anybody in the industry in Indianapolis at all. And there were so many questions that I had. I also wanted someone who could come alongside me and say, hey, here are some of the experiences that I had. Here's some ways that I can deal with things. Maybe this will help you. So I decided I was just going to go about trying to find people like that. And I reached out and I talked to a bunch of people and talked to a bunch of people and talked to a bunch of people. And everybody was like, yeah, I don't know anybody. So good luck. Have fun with that. Eventually, I got to the point where I understood I needed to look for a very specific industry operations person. And what I found was when I found someone that was in a construction industry, in a director of operations role that was close to my age, we were dealing with very similar things. Once I found those core people, they were able to really help me understand what are the areas that we need to look at. And the big thing too that was really crazy was I'm not alone. I am not on an island out here trying to create these processes and dictate the operations and help with the operations of this company by myself. There is no problem that I came across that was unique to me. There were nuances that were unique for sure, but as a whole, there are a lot of people out there who have dealt with or are dealing with or are going to deal with the same problems. I would probably say 80% of the time when I sit down with somebody who is in an operations spot, they know someone or have a solution to something that I may need at that moment. I'm thinking of one instance. I met with a guy and we were just meeting because we were friends, and he had changed roles within, actually had changed companies and roles. And we were just kind of meeting up, and he was like, I know that, the offering that I had last time was not good for you. Don't know that it's ever going to be valuable for you, but just wanted to sit down and meet. And I started telling him about one of the challenges we were facing of a software that we needed. He goes, well, interesting you should say that. My company actually provides that. I was like, well, there you go. So things like that come out of this. I also had a situation where I was meeting with somebody and I just told him off the cuff, I was like, man, I'm really just looking for a good CPA right now that can help with, a very specific project. And they're like, well, I've got somebody who does that for a living. That's their projects that they do. And I was like, well, great, make a connection. And those times are when you start seeing your network expanding organically and with that warm introduction.
You kind of talked about your visibility in the hidden job market, jobs that or opportunities that are available that are not publicly posted online anywhere or out there in the public knowledge. It's more like opportunities, like you said, that generate organically, where it's just kind of in a conversation. Hey, it would be great if I had someone who could do this for me. Well, yeah. You might be that person that, they could think of. And if you're in their network, then you have that opportunity. And I mean, that's a major benefit, in my opinion, to building your network. And then you tapped into this as well, the whole knowledge and learning aspect of networking. You have professional associations like SHRM for people in human resources. You have AMA for people who are in marketing. RPD, actually, we use Epicor Profit 21 as our ERP, and we are actually in an association called the Profit 21 Worldwide Users Group. And that group allows us to benchmark ideas or troubleshoot problems through forums, through events and webinars. They have a yearly conference that we attend. And basically, kind of what you alluded to, because Profit 21 is such a very specific ERP system, we want to be able to network with people that also use this software. We want people who, troubleshoot it often to be able to benchmark ideas off of. So there's definitely a lot of benefits to networking, but I would say two of the most common that immediately come to mind are visibility in the hidden job market, and then also just being able to branch out your knowledge by learning from people who have a lot of experience and expertise that you might not have. So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Second question, what recommendations would you provide to someone who finds it difficult to network with others?
So as I was trying to think through this, the first thing that I want to say on this is do it. That's the first thing, is like, you have to get to a point mentally where you understand and you accept, okay, this is something I need to do. This is something that will benefit me as a professional, and in multiple ways, right? It's going to benefit you. A little trick that I learned a little while back was, when you hit that roadblock, and everybody hits a roadblock of, I have 700 items on my to-do list, and I only have the capacity to do one of them today, which means I'm going to be buried for the next 10 years in getting this work done. What do? Well, the one of the best things you can do is change your environment. Get out of your office, get out of your four walls, go to a coffee shop. For me, it was setting up my laptop somewhere that I didn't have a second screen. So all I could work on was items that were just doable with one screen, which was emails, some spreadsheets, things like that. So it made the decision process very simple of getting out and doing certain things. And I was able to get a lot accomplished. So I say all that to say, definitely put it on your priority list to get out and network. One of the things that can really help when you do this, though, especially if you're not used to it, is don't look for a small group, right? Start with a bigger group. It's easier to kind of disappear in the crowd a little bit. And you can learn a lot from that method. I did that when I first started networking for sales. I'm not a traditional salesperson. I don't thrive in that environment. I can do well at relationships, but I'm not your typical, hey, here, I'd like to sell you a product or a service or whatever. I don't do that. So when it came to those types of networking events and things like that, I forced myself to go to larger groups, because then I could kind of observe and see what was going on. And I wasn't feeling so much pressure of, okay, I'm in a 5-person group and I have to give them a 3-minute spiel on what my company is and does and what's best for somebody else. Like, I don't like that. I don't enjoy that at all. I don't thrive there. And it's very off-putting if you don't enjoy being in the quote unquote spotlight. The second piece of this is, once you go to that larger group, don't plan on making meaningful connections right then and there. It will not happen. You're going to have maybe 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes to talk to somebody. You're not going to learn everything about them. You're going to get an idea. You're going to get the basic idea of, this is their name, this is the company they work for, this is what they do, this is what the services or products they offer, right? That's it. So then from there, your next step is much easier and simpler. You have their business card, you have their email address, you reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to get coffee or a lunch or whatever it is, and try to be as absolutely down to earth, relaxed as you possibly can about it. It doesn't need to be formal. It needs to be super chill. Keep in mind, at these events, you're not going to make that meaningful relationship. That's going to come later. Next step, be selective, right? So especially when you're first starting, make sure that you know who you're talking to. There's been a couple situations where I've made a connection with someone that I know I'm okay with keeping them in my network group. I'm okay with keeping their card, but I'm not going to reach out to them tomorrow and say, hey, let's set up a meeting, right? Know who you're going after. You're probably going to meet, let's say you meet 10 people. Of those 10 people, you probably want to set up meetings with anywhere from 2 to 4 of them. It's not going to be every single one of them. And you don't want to. You're going to waste your time and energy with people that are competitors, or just don't correlate whatsoever with what you're doing or what you're trying to do. If they don't, it's great to meet them. Good to hang on to their name, because somewhere down the road, you might need to get in contact with them, or they might reach out to you. Next thing, I kind of already said it, follow up. Always follow up. If you know that this is a person that you want to meet, you want to be around that person, you want to learn from them, follow up with them, hit them with an email. One question you can always ask too is, hey man, after today, how many, when would be a good time to follow up with you, and what's your preferred method? And a lot of times people say, oh, you can hit me this afternoon, or, you can email me tomorrow, but I won't be able to respond to it for the next 6 days or whatever it is. But at least then you have expectations set. And then when you do that meetup, right, especially early on, it's really good to think through a preset set of questions that you can ask about the individual, the company, however you want this conversation to go. Come up with a preset set of questions that are not yes or no. A yes or no answer is really simple and really big conversation killer. It's the easiest way to sit there and stare at the other person and go, well, that was all my questions, and we're 3 minutes in and you said yes, no, yes. Ask questions that are not yes or no, and make sure they're preset ahead of time so you don't have to think about it. Sometimes you'll get into a conversation with someone and you can throw those questions out because you just have an instant connection. It's not always going to happen, but sometimes it does. And then you just have a normal conversation. Other times it's a little more stilted and you need those pieces to be able to continue the conversation. As the relationship grows, the need for those minimizes drastically. But you're at the point where you're starting this conversation.
I think in order to build your network with meaningful and lasting relationships, where each party can truly benefit from each other, you have to build authentic relationships. You really want to go into networking with the mindset of how can I give to others instead of how can I get from others. And of course, you will get things from others. But in my experience, whenever I've gone into any relationship with the mindset of how can I serve this person, the opportunities to gain from that relationship have just naturally opened up. Right. And so I think I speak for a lot of people when we know someone who kind of goes into a relationship in a very salesy way where you can just tell right away they're just trying to get something from you. They want your sale, they want you to use their product or service, and right off the bat, it immediately turns everyone off from that relationship and just goes, okay, yeah, I'm not really interested. But if you look for common interests or experiences that you've shared, and kind of like what Peter said about sharing stories together, it can kind of help you find common ground, which can break the ice and make building that authentic relationship with the people you're networking with much easier. And another way to do that, I would say, be an active listener. So focus your energy on listening, pay close attention to what people are telling you, ask follow-up questions based on questions you've already asked, and wait for their responses. This not only shows interest, but it makes the interaction much more meaningful. If you're having trouble finding a way to put yourself in those instances where you can meet people, you can volunteer for things that you're interested in, communities that can serve, or you can join a community of people that are interested in what you're interested in. We talked about associations earlier, for example, right? So you can volunteer for events, you can join committees. They can all be related to your interests or your industry, like Peter mentioned. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to collaborate in a setting where there's not as much pressure to kind of get along with each other. You're all doing something for a common good. So those would be kind of my recommendations and for best practices for people who might find it difficult to network. And I would just recommend that you just keep an open mind and try to implement them as best as you can. So this brings me to my third and final question. How can individuals nurture and maintain long-term relationships within their network?
Sure. Great question, because that's hard. It's easy to meet somebody for the first time. I think this is helped along by that first meeting. When you make that first connection, you're going to know if you're going to click with that person. You're going to know pretty quick if you're going to be able to have that long-term relationship or not. Sometimes you're going to want to have that, and sometimes that connection won't appear to be there. So sometimes you need to look deeper than just, hey, have we connected on a personal level, professional level, et cetera, and was it easy to talk? Sometimes it's more about the things that they bring out in you or you bring out in them, right? I love, Ian, your concept of always looking to give rather than to receive. So important when you go into these meetings to have that mindset. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because I glossed over it very quickly because it's one of those things that I do, but I don't always think about it. It's very important to think about that when you go into these situations. When you do that, you will find that these relationships become much more meaningful, and the connection is much deeper. So it will be easier to keep up with. That being said, there are two things that I look for in keeping these relationships long term. First of all, is find your people, right? I can't say it any simpler than that. You're going to know the people that you want to spend time around. You're also going to recognize if it's going to be a meaningful relationship and connection by the conversation that you have. And what I mean by that is, are they encouraging you? Are you encouraging them? Naturally, does that come about? Is there a challenge in there somewhere? Some of the best connections I've made have been people who have challenged me on my beliefs or on my arguments or whatever it may be. They've challenged me, and not in an argumentative way, but hey, I think you need to look at it from a different perspective. And here's why. They're challenging me to grow. They're challenging me to look at things differently. And then the second part of it is set the meetings. And I don't mean like one meeting, I mean meetings. If you can get a cadence going where you're meeting this time every single month or week or whatever your cadence looks like for you and your schedule, set something up. I meet with my vendors once a quarter. These guys have my phone number. We text, we call, we have personal relationships outside of business relationships. All of that started, though, by meeting once a month.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think really the two most important things are staying in touch and trying to provide value. And as long as you consistently do those two things for the people that you are networked with, that group of people that you're talking about, I think you'll only continue to see opportunities flourish for you and the group of people you're with. So I couldn't agree more. So Peter, I just want to thank you once again for joining us on the show and sharing all of your wisdom and expertise with us. And I want to thank you, the viewers, for joining in and watching the show today. If you want to learn more about RPD and the products and services that we provide, you can visit our website at www.rpdcorp.com. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the RPD podcast. Thank you. Bye-bye.